From apples to cherries and blueberries, farming is a big part of West Michigan's community.
Yeah, and while the way we farm has advanced over the years, a local museum still has plenty of rare turn-of-the-century equipment. Kevin Craig explains in this week's West Michigan Stories.
Today's West Michigan story is all about the way things used to be down on the farm, encapsulated in a one-of-a-kind agricultural museum. In an old onion storage warehouse in Clarksville is a plain, almost unmarked building. It's home to a very special museum, one dedicated to vintage farm equipment, tools, and supplies.
Started cleaning this out. It was an onion storage, and it was a filthy, dirty old hole. There was walls in here that had to come down. And it's been quite a chore to get it to where it is today.
Harold Metternich grew up working on farms at an early age, but at 75 years old has taken on the task of restoring early turn-of-the-century farm equipment.
It's difficult to tear all this stuff apart because you don't have a blueprint, and the bolts are all different lengths, different sizes.
By trade, Harold was an electrician for 45 years. His goal now, simply to keep the agricultural past alive.
It's fun to tear stuff apart and clean it, put rust killer on it, and paint it and put it back together. It's a challenge, but it's rewarding.
Many of these museum pieces were pulled by horses in the early days of farming, like this Daisy Reaper from the late 1800s.
Well, this is to cut your wheat, oats, or barley.
So somebody sits up here?
Sits here, pulled by horses.
Okay.
And these paddles would go around and pull the grain off on 90 degrees each way, and then you had to come along and hand tie it.
You'll also find a few different types of early hay loaders, a hand corn sheller, hand-spun cream separators, hammer mills for grinding feed, and hand grinders for sharpening blades for equipment. Two of the biggest names in farm equipment is clearly evident: International Harvester and McCormick Deering.
Wow. Everything's tore apart. There's a pile of bolts and pieces. Clean it and start painting, put it back together.
And each one of these pieces of machinery and equipment still functions. That includes some of the smaller things like a hand butter churner.
This is my Grandpa Young's sausage stuffer. They cleaned the intestines on your pigs, and they put them on this tube, and then they pressed the meat.
In addition to all the farm equipment, hand tools, logos, and signs, Harold has managed to collect several vintage tractors in various colors and a few fire trucks. After all, he was on the Bound Township Alto Volunteer Fire Department for 50 years.
The fire trucks go out for parades. Some of the tractors do, but mostly the fire trucks go to 4th of July parades or different things going on, ox roast or whatever.
We also ran across one of the first snowblowers ever made in the 1950s, which has the same paddle wheel technology as the ones today. How about an early push mower, vintage early riding mowers, and even an electric riding mower that might have allowed you to cut quietly at night? And while it doesn't have to do with farm equipment, Harold has some of the first generation refrigerators and box freezers that followed the icebox. Big, bulky, and heavy, but they did the job. He doesn't get much traffic through the museum, but he's hoping that will change with this story. He simply wants to preserve the past in this 12,000 square foot agricultural museum that no one else has. If you'd like more information on the Farm Acres Museum, just go to fox17online.com, click on the News tab at the top of the page, and follow that to the West Michigan Stories link. In Ionia County, in the village of Clarksville, I'm Kevin Craig with another Fox 17 West Michigan.